My wife put me in the friend zone, and now I'm just the father of her children. She forbids sleeping with her. My wife, 35F, and I, 35M, have been married for 15 years and have been together for a total of 20 years. We are parents to 2 children, aged 12 and 14, whom we absolutely adore. We work tirelessly to provide the best possible life for them. However, over the past 3 years, our relationship has encountered some turbulence. Our children are at an age where they demand a significant amount of our attention and resources due to school, band, club sports, and other extracurricular activities. I understand that this can take a physical and emotional toll on marriages. Despite our efforts, my wife and I have experienced very little intimacy and sexual connection over these past 3 years. We have been striving to improve this aspect of our relationship. This past year has been the most challenging and darkest period in our marriage. Our communication dwindled to almost nothing, and we essentially became roommates co-parenting our children under the same roof. This situation was very depressing and demoralizing for both of us. It reached a point where we began contemplating divorce, casting a dark and gloomy shadow over our household. In an effort to save our marriage, we sought help through both individual therapy and couples therapy. These interventions seemed to provide some relief. Gradually, we started to get along better and began having deeper conversations about the state of our marriage and what we hoped it could become. However, things took a difficult turn as time passed. My wife confided in me that she no longer felt in love with me. She saw me only as a best friend and loved me in a purely platonic way. She explained that this was one of the main reasons she had no desire for intimacy or sex. This revelation was shocking and devastating to me. I became angry and depressed, struggling to comprehend that the person I was deeply in love with no longer wanted or desired me. Our relationship began to deteriorate once again, and we found ourselves back at square one. One afternoon, I sat down with my wife for a heartfelt conversation. I asked her probing questions to uncover the root of our problems. Her response was, "I don't know," followed by, "I have built up resentment towards you, but I don't know where it stems from." As you can imagine, this provides very little to no insight into how to approach this situation. I'm puzzled, frustrated, and at a loss for what to do at this point. Currently, we've reached a place where she says she has no sex drive and no desire for intimacy or connection. She states that all she wants is simply companionship, which essentially means maintaining our co-parenting roommate dynamic. When I asked her what I could do or what it is about me that she finds so unattractive or undesirable, her response is always, "I don't know." She mentioned that she does love me, but it's not the same as it used to be. She has been feeling disconnected for years and believes our marriage requires too much effort. Her focus is solely on the children for now, and she acknowledges that my co-parenting contributions are meaningful to her in our home. I'm at a loss and mainly venting my frustration. It's tough to realize that the person you love has no romantic feelings for you. I feel like at this point, I'm only here to contribute financially and as a parent. It seems that by companionship, she means she's comfortable with the convenience of having a good father for our kids and my financial contribution to the household. Regarding intimacy and/or sex, she basically told me that it's not something she's interested in or wants at this time. She mentioned that the only way she could engage in intimacy or sex is if she's intoxicated, which I believe is incredibly awful and very wrong. I told her that I don't think forcing herself to have sex or be intimate by drinking or smoking is healthy, and I declined to be a part of that. To my surprise, this upset her and made her more distant. We're both extremely honest and transparent with each other. We've never cheated, and we are always free to look through each other's phones, emails, socials, etc., though we hardly ever do. I asked her if there was someone else, and she denied it. Honestly, I believe her. We then peacefully went through each other's things, and as expected, everything was clean. We've always been very forward with each other, even when discussing difficult topics, so I don't sense any foul play or infidelity. Am I wrong for declining to be intimate or have sex only when she's intoxicated? I'm firm on my stance of not partaking in this only when I'm high or drunk sex because it doesn't sit well with me. I do not know how to help our situation, and I'm starting to become a bit anxious and desperate. We're both fairly young, healthy individuals who are good-looking, have good careers, and are good parents. I'm just not sure how our lives could have led us to this point. I'd love some outside perspective on this matter and some insight on how to address something like this. It feels so awful to be unwanted and undesired by my own spouse. I hate it. Update, 8 days later. I wanted to give you all an update on how the therapy session with my wife went this week. I'm not sure if this will be helpful, but I took many of the responses, comments, and suggestions from my initial post and compiled them into topics I wanted to discuss with our couples therapist to help us navigate some of the core issues affecting our situation. One of the main buzzwords that has emerged is resentment, and it has been really eating me up inside. My wife keeps telling me she doesn't know why she's resentful or why this situation is affecting her emotionally and mentally. I brought this up with our therapist again and revisited the conversation about being married for so long, 15 years, and being together since we were 14 years old. We have a long history of growing up together, and having children when she was 19 years old and I was 20 significantly changed the trajectory of our lives. We experienced severe poverty and many hardships along the way. And we essentially had zero social life for the past 10 years because we were so busy raising babies. Our kids are now 12 and 14 years old. The therapist followed up with tons of questions directed mostly at my wife about her feelings toward this. About 90% of her responses were very "our kids" focused. It definitely felt like she was afraid of saying yes, it sucked, because she would feel guilt or shame, as it might imply she regrets having the kids. I mentioned this in the session, and the therapist encouraged her to look at this outside the lens of being a mother and to try to view it more selfishly and individually. This was very eye-opening. My wife mentioned that she was very frustrated with the fact that we did miss out on many things in life. She was also very clear in saying, "I do not think I missed out on other partners or dating or partying, but I certainly lost all my friends." This was huge, because one of the big issues that has caused strain in our lives is how siloed and isolated we've been. Again, busy raising kids. I followed up by reminding her that it's important to have good friends and to make time for herself and her friendships. For the past 3+ years, we've had multiple conversations about friends and how important it is to have them in life, especially when you have similar peers who can help in many areas of life where we may lack experience, and even simply for enjoyment. It has always been something my wife avoids, even though she's always been someone who needs that external stimulation. The main reason for her not investing in friends or even herself has always been the kids. Like I mentioned earlier, 90% of her answers relate to the kids to some degree. At this point in our session, I started to feel like there was a common denominator, the kids, in most of the frustrations and problems she was experiencing. So I simply asked her, "Do you think you may be upset at me because I'm responsible for these kids in the sense that I got you pregnant so young?" I wasn't ready, but she said that she was upset at me for that. She also followed up with the fact that she knows that's unreasonable because it takes two to tango. I did feel like it was progress because it kind of gave us something to work on and help alleviate some of these burdens, so we agreed to invest more time in nurturing good friendships both together and individually. Towards the end of the session, we began to discuss what actionable items we would take from this session. At this point, it was still all very ambiguous and blurry as to what the outcomes were. I was very direct and very forward in asking my wife what her plan is moving forward. Note: I had decided prior to the session that should my wife say the same thing about being a co-parenting roommate, that I would take the 180 approach and essentially do me. She started basically saying the same thing, that she doesn't have any desire to be intimate or sexual with me as of now, and that she loves me immensely, and she feels bad for not being there for me, as mentioned in my first post. I also brought up the brief swinging that happened, to which for the 50th time said it wasn't a problem. I agree with her on this. This was something that was a mechanical approach for a solution to a problem that was very much inexistent when we tried this. We, both, really have no issue to this. We know it happened, we tried it, and mutually stopped and turned the page. I also brought up other life events that may cause resentment, and really we ended up not getting anywhere else as far as the root for resentment, which was discouraging. I then basically expressed to my wife that I will not be okay with that arrangement. I told her that I've really done everything I can and that this issue really has reached a point where it has nothing to do with me or require me to do anything that I'm currently not doing. I was very direct, and saying that I will not be accepting this dynamic and that I need to be with someone who is actively involved in our marriage, works towards resolutions, and is very much interested in maintaining an active intimacy and sexual relationship. I expressed how I am not going to be a convenience, and that there was more to life than being roommates and co-parents. I made sure she knows I love her dearly and that I do want this to work for the better. I also told her that I'm fully committed to this marriage so long as she is as well, and that is she wasn't. It's okay, however, I will not be a part of something where these efforts are not reciprocated. I told her I have no plans of leaving, and I do not want a divorce. However, I made it clear that if this dynamic continues, that divorce will be the only outcome. Of course, tears were involved, and it was a very bleak and sad ending to the session. Still nothing was said, and I walked out very discouraged and very determined to start working on the 180 as soon as we left the room. It's painful and very difficult because much of the 180 requires you to be very short and cold and transactional. The saddest part is realizing that this dynamic is already very cold and transactional. Here's where it gets very interesting. I started working on implementing many of the 180 recommendations that same day. I mentioned to my wife, "Hey, things are going to be a bit different moving forward. I'm going to honor your roommate co-parent dynamic without reproach, but it should be clear that I am not happy here, and I am never going to be okay with it. However, I am done working on it if you aren't going to work on it." She agreed and went to bed. I began to build distance and started to focus on myself, becoming very short and transactional in our interactions. She asked for help with some of her personal things, which I declined, and it really shocked her. She was upset, saying I was being petulant. I explained that she is now fully in charge of her own life and her own issues. We didn't talk all day and only spoke when necessary. After a few days of this, she became visibly upset and stressed. Typically, I would react to that with gestures of help or nurturing, but I didn't this time. That night, she was crying, telling me she's stressed and thinks something is wrong with me because I'm indifferent. I simply listened, then told her that this is the dynamic she proposed, and that I'm simply, much like her, taking care of myself and focusing on myself. I'm not going to lie, it has been very hard to be cold and distant because, as I mentioned before, I love her and wish I could hold her and show affection. However, I know this is somewhat manipulative on her part to get her way while still keeping me in the friend zone. So I've been staying the course. We're now going on a week of this 180 approach, and let's just say there have been many changes on her side. I think she is starting to realize there is more to me than just friends and co-parenting. A few days ago, I sent her a text essentially itemizing bills and separating the financial responsibilities 50-50ths, and she lost her shit. She basically told me it was out of left field, to which I responded, "Hey, friends go 50-50ths, and as your friend, I expect nothing less." This was very eye-opening because it gave me a glimpse of how I'm really taken for granted and how her level of comfort and convenience at my expense is really overlooked. I pushed through anyway and basically told her that this is the new dynamic she asked for and that it's still a bargain because she would have to handle 100% if she were on her own. I'll wrap up with this. While the 180 approach has been working in many different areas, I am still very much sad about the overall situation. There have been many eye-opening statements made and realizations that have not been pleasant to encounter. It has also sparked new energy and new efforts on her side as well. She's definitely seeking to talk to me more often, and while it's hard to turn down, I hope if things improve, this continues to happen. I've also noticed that she's making more time for herself aside from being a mom, which is huge because she pretty much neglected herself for years. I'm very pleased seeing her be more herself. My hope is that as we work on ourselves, the marriage improves. There really is no telling at this point where this will go. We remain very much cordial and amicable even to this day, and that's a very good sign. Boundaries are set, expectations are very clear, and I feel that no matter the outcome, I will be at peace with everything that has been done. We're still going to continue with couples therapy until we either rekindle our marriage or end up in divorce. I feel like having this non-biased third party really helps as a witness and as a guide through this process. No matter what happens, I will always love my wife. However, I will not participate in a sexless, intimacy-less marriage because we both deserve better. Thank you all for the kind words, recommendations, and feedback. This will be my last post on this topic, and I wish you all the best. Okay, next story. My father-in-law falsely accused me of cheating on my husband. My husband and his dad are best friends. They work together, hang out together. I've always known his dad didn't like me, but things got worse after we moved out of his house and got our own. He'll act nice to me in front of my husband except for some non-funny jokes or smart comments, but the minute my husband is not around, he gets rude to me. Like reminding me that I come from a poor family, would never have a big house or nice car if it wasn't for his son. He just constantly insinuates that I married his son for money, which is not true. I got tired of mentioning it to my husband because he just brushes it off. Father-in-law has told me a couple times that I should divorce his son before he tells him the truth. I knew I haven't done anything wrong, so I didn't know what to say. I even asked my husband exactly 2 weeks ago what would happen if his dad made up some lies about me, and he said his dad would never do that. Well, he did. He told my husband that he has seen me around town with a man multiple times and that I was seen getting a hotel room with the same man. He claims he's seen us kiss. I wasn't around when he told my husband this. I told him it's a lie, but I can tell he is now doubting my word. I asked if his dad had some kind of proof, and he said no. Then he told me he needs to be away from me for a few days to clear his head and went straight to his dad's. To me, that just means he believes his dad's lies. Why would his dad go out of his way to do this? And why would he just believe it? This just seems so unfair. You'd think he would at least expect some proof before shutting me out and treating me like I did something wrong. I don't know if I'm supposed to beg him to come back or just let his dad's plan work. I know the longer he stays there, the more he will believe his lies. Relevant comments. Commenter. Confront him and make sure to record the interaction, either through video or audio. Since he tends to behave this way whenever your husband is not around, this provides the perfect opportunity for you to catch him in his lies. You might also consider recording a phone call to gather evidence of his behavior. UEP. As soon as my husband informed me, I immediately called him in an attempt to gather evidence that he was being deceitful. Throughout the conversation, he refrained from saying anything incriminating and repeatedly expressed sentiments such as, "I can't believe you do this to him," as if he genuinely believed that I had been unfaithful. This led me to question whether he was aware that I was trying to record our conversation. Alternatively, he might be completely out of his mind. OOP on her husband believing his father if there are no proof that OOP cheated on him. OOP, especially when he doesn't even have proof. Why is it so easy for him to believe his dad's word over mine? An affair is something that can be easily proven. If I were having one and being seen around town, why can't he provide evidence? I asked him for proof, but he kept insisting that it was irrelevant because he trusts his dad. Then he said his dad doesn't have proof because he never had the opportunity to take a picture of me with the other guy. It's literally his word against mine, and he has chosen to believe his dad. I'm seriously considering giving up. This is so unfair. I have never cheated on him. I've never done anything wrong. His dad is accusing me without any evidence, and if it's this easy for my husband to view me as an awful person who would do such a thing, then I guess he never truly trusted me. He doesn't realize how terrible his dad is. I have been trying to tell him for so long, and at this point, maybe it's just not worth it. OOP on her father-in-law and why he doesn't like her. OOP. His dad believes that I'm only in this relationship for the money, and I can't understand why he thinks that way. I'm on the verge of leaving and starting over on my own. I don't need the car or the house. Those material things mean nothing to me. I'm here because I genuinely love my husband. However, it's clear that he doesn't love me enough to even ask for proof before assuming the worst about me. I'd rather be on my own than continue to deal with this unjust situation. If his dad is willing to go to such lengths to discredit me, who knows what he might do next? OOP on finding a way to prove the truth. OOP, you just reminded me that we actually have Ring cameras installed. This could be incredibly helpful. Now, I just need to find out the specific days and times I was allegedly out cheating at a hotel. There's a good chance that I was home during those times, and if that's the case, I can use the footage from the Ring cameras to prove my innocence. Thank you so much for pointing this out. Update. A few weeks ago, I posted about a situation where my father-in-law, who dislikes me, falsely accused me of cheating on my husband. Without asking for any proof, my husband believed his father's lies, which caused a lot of turmoil. He assumed his father was truthful and moved out to stay with him. I repeatedly told my husband that if his father was being honest, he should be able to provide some evidence. Apparently, no proof was given because my husband eventually returned home and apologized for not trusting me more. However, since his return, he has become fixated on the idea of having a baby. He talks about it constantly and is physically trying to conceive. I keep telling him that at 23 years old, I don't feel ready for a child yet. While I do want to have children in the future, I believe we need to focus on strengthening our relationship, especially after the recent events. My husband doesn't like my responses and has started calling me suspicious, saying that my answers don't make sense to him. It feels like we're back to the issue of him not trusting me. I am confused and unsure about what is happening. I am seeking some outside input because I am beginning to question whether this relationship is even working. How do you like these stories? Write your opinion in the comments. Let's get 1,000 subscribers on this channel. Love you.